All right. So, let me go ahead and turn the music off there. Let's see. Let me just make sure everything is running smoothly. Looks like it is. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll do that. Going to, oh yeah, I think I need to send the link off to one more place and then we'll be good to go. All right. And then time to switch scenes. And there we go. I'm I'm going goblin mode today. But this game is definitely more of a visual novel than what I usually play. Alright. So I'm definitely going to be talking a lot. Better get used to the sound of my voice. Yeah, I've got plenty of water, so no need to worry about me staying hydrated for sure. Shoot. I was gonna give a whole spiel about the game, but I don't know what to say. It's definitely, it's a visual novel, but I feel like it's also a really good introduction into what Werewolf the Apocalypse is about. My biggest critique of it is that it's so short. Oh, I should probably turn down the audio a little bit. Seems like it's a little bit on the loud side. We'll do that, we'll lower that down a bit, and I think that's gonna help. There. Hey Eve, hello, hello. There we go. Alright. Well, yeah, I feel like this game, this story is a pretty good, like, starting introduction to what Werewolf is all about. Like I was saying, my biggest critique of it is that it's really short. Look while I munch and prep. You'll have to let me know what you think of this. Oh yeah, I've played it before. I've done one playthrough of it before. I don't remember what the end result was, but I've I've talked about Werewolf to a few other people and hyped it up a lot, like I usually do. And I figured I might as well play this because, have you? I don't recall you mentioning it. Oh, Max, I have mentioned it like every other conversation. And I've told you about the spirit truck that my my character helped to make. But yeah, I played through it once, like ages ago, and I meant to do another playthrough of it, but never got around to it. And I am still on my werewolf kick phase, so I'm gonna play it again on stream. It's gonna be a lot of reading. So let's just jump right into it. But yeah, so Oh gosh, before we do that, me talking about the story, and how this is a good a pretty good introduction to kind of touching on what Werewolf is about. The art is fucking amazing. It's very visceral. It's just I feel like it's a unique style. Anyway, I'm gonna stop gushing about it, and I'm just gonna play it. And let me know if the audio is too quiet too, because that also plays I think a pretty big part into the atmosphere of the game as well. Actually, I might actually go ahead and raise the volume up just a little bit for shits and giggles. There we go. Alright. So we're on the prologue. Premonition. Boy howdy, this is a game about rage. How it helps us do things that need to be done, as well as things that we later regret. Sometimes both. How do I feel about it? Great, I'm always angry. Okay with anger when it's useful. Prefer to think before I act. Let's go for the middle option. I'm okay with anger when it's useful. So you're the critical and analytical type. That's okay. There's no right path here, just your decisions and their consequences. Let's just follow the path and see where it takes us. The forest. The woods are full of stars. They flicker, come closer, run away. They want me to chase them, to play hide and seek. Let's hunt. They dance around the tree trunks, float up on the gusts of wind that shiver through the branches, disappear among the leaves. I let out a howl, eager to run with them. I want everyone to know I'm there. Then they bunch up and fly toward me like an arrow. Rushing down, they're soon upon me. But just before the spear of light pierces my breast, they disappear, and the dark of the night returns. In the darkness, I feel the tangled roots of stories, keeping the forest alive. And I hear the spirits asking me to judge the enemy. I open my eyes, and then I wake up. Confused, I open my eyes. The forest around me is thick, dark, and reeks of decay to such an extent that it's hard to breathe. I recognize this forest. I know this place. I've been dreaming about this forest since I was a child. The tree trunks, wrapped tightly in dark-leaved ivy, are covered in ripples of lichen where the vines haven't taken hold. The thorny, leafless bushes at their base are overrun with nettles. The fungi radiate with a ghoulish, sickly green light. Dark, sponge-like mushrooms cling to the fallen trees. Something is rotten. I can't shake the feeling that something died nearby. I look down and see my hands covered in a dark substance. I'm naked. A sticky, glistening film of liquid is clinging to my skin. I can feel it on my face, in my hair, blood. What's happening? I have no idea what's happening, but the stories start forming in my mind. Someone has drawn strange symbols on my skin in the drying blood. Was it me? There's a severed head right in front of me. Ooh. Wince and I touch it, or I'm gonna be sick. I'm gonna fucking touch it. Overcoming my disgust, I gently touch its wet hair and watch as the head topples over. The face is contorted, the eyes bulging, the mouth open as though the head were still struggling for air. I balk as I recognize who it is, and then eyes open in the darkness. The enemy. I can see their silhouettes, shades of jet black against the darkness. They reek of metal and acid and oil and money. Massive creatures, some with mandibles, some with spidery legs. Their faceted eyes burn like small industrial furnaces. I look at them and something wakes inside of my chest. Cold fury. Their entire existence is wrong, an abomination to the natural order. They have been judged and found lacking. I straighten up, ready to carry out my sentence. In a moment of clarity, I almost understand what the forest wants from me. And then I wake up. Chapter 1. Arrival. Maya? Maya! Maya, wake up! I jerked upright, irritated. My neck was stiff, and the movement sent a sudden sharp wave of discomfort through my body. I wasn't in the forest anymore, I was in a bus. The sun streaming through the windows was making it hard to see. The girl next to me was touching my shoulder, disturbed. Gonna ask her what happened. What happened? Overcoming the urge to push her away was hard. She looked at me, concerned. You were screaming. I blinked. The memory of the dream was still there. I slowly unclenched my fists. I was glad I wasn't alone. Thank you for coming with me, I said. The girl next to me smiled. I think we're almost there. Her name was Anya. We'd met a couple weeks earlier on the orientation day. She was from Norway, a tall, broad-shouldered, calm person who wore her long hair in braids. Somehow, I'd managed to talk her into this crazy field trip across the land of my ancestors. Hi Lilith, welcome aboard. You missed it, we touched a head. We touched a disembodied head in a dream. It was crazy. Yeah, you missed it. But that's okay, there's more. There's gonna be more where that comes from. Alright, so... gonna say she seemed excited. Anya reached into her backpack and took out 2 apples. I'm really happy we decided to come here, she said. Yeah, I said, offering her some of my cabanossi, dried meaty sausages that were so much better than the original Polish ones back in the US. Hey Nova, no, it's okay. You don't need to apologize for being late. You came in just in time. Well, you missed us touching a decapitated head, but I promise there will be more head touching later on, I'm sure. I was glad Anya had decided to come with me. I had problems keeping friends around, and really needed one. I did some searching, she said from over her phone, and this place is amazing. The last primordial forest in Europe. Too obsessed with Baldur's Gate 3 right now? I totally understand that. Thank you for the hydrate, and the posture check, and the stretch. Alright, well, hydrate, and then posture check, And then a big stretch and a bonk. Ouch. This trip was my idea. Our summer language course was starting in a few weeks, and I'd managed to talk Anya into skipping the tours of concentration camps and old churches and visiting... Oh gosh, I wish I could pronounce that. Bialovezia National Park with me instead. So far it's beautiful, she said, her eyes smiling. But why are we here again? That's a good question, Anya. I wish I knew. Why were we there? Oh, does this have a pronunciation? Bialovezia. Bialovezia? Village in Poland's Lassie province in the middle of... Okay. God damn it. I feel bad stumbling over this, but I feel like I need to pronounce this right. Bialovezia. Bialovezia. I think that's... I'll try. I'm gonna try. Small village in northeast Poland, near the border with Belarus. It was famous for its national park, the very last European bison. Oh, it was famous for its national park, the very last European bison, and according to a quick web search, occasional tensions between far-right troublemakers and the local Belarusian community. The most honest answer would have been, because I've been dreaming about the forest since I can remember. But people didn't understand when I said things like that. I looked her in the eyes. Okay, we don't have the willpower to tell her everything. We're gonna tell her as much as we can. I wanted to see the forest. I heard it was a must. That wasn't technically a lie. When I was little, my grandfather told me stories about an ancient forest full of wonders and the wolves that lived in it. It was all I got from that part of my family before my mom took me, ran away, and cut off all contact with my dad. But I remembered the stories well, and I remembered the name of the forest. Okay, Puszcza Białowieska. This will always be our home, my grandfather used to say. I waited for her to respond. Anya fell silent for a moment. I think it's great that you come from such a magical place, she smiled. The last ancient forest in Europe, thousands of years old. I wasn't sure if I was fond of that magic, but it was hard to ignore. And that was precisely why I need to do something, anything, about my future, that damn forest and my weird-ass family. I had a clear goal in mind. I wasn't there by mistake. I'd planned this trip for months, with a clear goal in mind. Had to face the forest, had to learn the truth about my roots, had to figure out my destiny. I'm thinking face the forest. We've been dreaming about this forest since forever. Learn about the forest. New goal. Boy howdy. My dreams, my grandfather's stories, the fact my family was from there were too many coincidences. The forest wanted something from me, and it was time to find out what. I never was one to sit idly by as things happened to me. Willpower dropped to 0. When you lose all your health or willpower, you become impaired. This will make physical tasks if you have 0 health, or social and mental tasks if you have 0 willpower, harder and sometimes impossible. Well, shoot. Okay then. Białowieża. Białowieża Looks like an overexposed photo of a village, with the contrast turned all the way up. The sun wasn't just shining, it was shouting at the earth and everything. The trees, the grass, the wooden houses, the fences seemed weathered. Everything except the shadows. They were sharp, as though they were freshly printed with the darkest of inks. And they moved. For a second, I could have sworn they'd moved. But then I realized it was just a black cat walking down the sidewalk. When it saw me, it stopped in its tracks. Okay, if you know me, we're gonna try to pet every single cat. Let's try to pet it. Yeah, kitty kitty, I said, squatting, reaching towards the cat. In a flash, it swatted my hand away with its paw, drawing a few drops of blood. I yelped. Hey Maya, Anya said, looking at me surprised. Didn't you say your friend would be waiting for us? But he wasn't there, and the cat was still staring at me. Let's go. Anya put on her backpack. I'm tired and I really need to find a toilet. I didn't know what to do. I was too tired and distracted to think clearly. My friend was nowhere in sight. But the meeting was just too important. Actually, no. Let's storm off. I stormed off. We're angry. We're angry. Maybe a little hangry. I grabbed my backpack and started walking. I hate when people are late, I muttered under my breath. I was walking fast, and it took a while for Anya to catch up with me. Białowieża had a few hotels and hostels, but the preferred form of accommodation was bed and breakfasts. That's where we stayed. I found one that was nice, clean, and that had good reviews. We had a room on the second floor with a huge window and a great view of the forest. We dropped off our stuff and freshened up a bit. Maybe we should have waited for your friend, Anya asked, concerned. I shrugged. I'll find him, sooner or later. Alright. So we can look at our character sheet. Find a load of useful information about Maya, her background, personality, goals, and so on. You can also check who your friends and who your enemies are. Alright. So we've got name, age, profession, nationality, personality, condition. We're impaired, we don't have any willpower. Our goal is to understand what connects us to the forest. We need to pursue this in order to regain willpower. Then we're sympathetic with Anya, and it's complicated when it comes to our family. Białowieża was a quaint tourist town, but I had other things in mind. I had a clear goal in mind. The forest was calling me, and I was ready to answer the call. Anya is going with us. Alright. We're going into that forest. Let's heckin' go. It was dark in the woods. Dark, humid, and chilly. The leaves didn't let through a lot of sunlight. Daniel looked at Anya and me over his shoulder. How do you like her? We'd met maybe 20 minutes earlier. Anya had Googled local guides, and he was apparently the best person to go to if you wanted to see the forest. So I found him, and now here we were. Wasn't sure who he meant. He was a strange one. I'd say he's kind of strange. Daniel was a strange guy. Slender, but muscular. Not the CrossFit type. It was more the kind of strength you get from walking all day long in the open. His skin was weather-beaten and bronzed by the sun, like tanned leather, and he moved in a very deliberate way. But his fingers were slim and delicate, and his eyes were the strangest shade of yellow-green. So, he repeated, how do you like her? Hi Ellie, how's it going? Welcome aboard. We're being werewolves today. Trying to find out who our family is. Because, our girl Maya here has been dreaming about the forest. And we're in that forest. Nope. Wasn't sure who he meant. Oh shit, Ellie noises. Do you mean the forest? I asked. Polish was a strange language that gave the most unexpected genders to objects and ideas. Shit, I don't know how to pronounce that. Damn it. Oh, Pushcha? I mean Pushcha. He gestured around us. The word sounded like the wind rustling in the leaves. Pushcha is the right word, not forest. Forests are like fields or orchards, cultivated. He spat as he said it. And Pushcha, she is older than even the concept of fields. He was using the word as though it was a name. I looked at the Pushcha again. I looked around with fresh eyes. I felt as though I'd entered an ancient hall where warriors told their stories. Trees stretched toward the sky like columns holding up the vaulted canopy, which blocked out all but a few rays of sunlight. Gigantic, fallen trunks were decomposing slowly around me, with young plants and colorful mushrooms sprouting from them. I tried to guess their age. Some looked like they'd been there since before Europeans had sailed to the Americas. What stories could they tell? I loved what I saw. There should be more places like this, I said earnestly. Or more of this place. Daniel lifted his head and looked me right in the eyes. Yes, you're right, he said with a serious expression. Then I remembered why I was there. I told him that I dreamed about the forest. There's a special reason I'm interested in the forest, I admitted. I'm not from here, I continued, but I think something secret connects me to this place. I dream about the forest a lot. Daniel stopped abruptly and turned to me, watching me for a while. His nostrils flared, as though he were tasting the air. Yes, his face broke into a smile. I think our families might have known each other many winters past. Pushcha still remembers. Come on, he started walking. I know exactly what you need to see. That piques my interest. And we're getting a willpower back. Hint, the forest recognized me. Condition, healthy. Okay. So I was right. There is something hidden in my family's past. Excuse me. So I was right. There was something hidden in my family's past, and it seemed to have a lot to do with the forest. With every step I was getting closer to solving the mystery. Alright, so every time we learn or do something significant that brings us closer to our goal, we regain willpower. So we're going to follow Daniel and see where he takes us. We have to choose a path, he said. There's the old wolf den, or I could show you the barrows first, or a clearing that some folks call a place of power. Oh boy, we've got options. Barrows? Wolf's Den? Or place of power? I guess... Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Catch a tiger by the toe. If he hollers, let him go. I guess we're going to the wolf den. Tourist trap? That's my vote? Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking let's go there. We'll be going to all of these eventually, but we'll start with the place of power. Magic? Tourist trap? I started walking, but after a few steps he stopped abruptly, like he'd remembered something. Then he turned to me. Could you do a favor, please? Sure. Yeah, man, sure. What do you need? I smiled. He ran his hand through the moss on a dead tree trunk, smelled his fingers, and then reached into his pocket. He took out a small stone. Something personal. Looked like one of the stones you treasure as a child, and then grew out of. But he looked at the pebble as though it were still a treasure. Ooh. Game tracks your decisions on how Maya approaches problems. They will accumulate and gradually reveal what kind of a person she is, deep in her heart. The story changes to reflect Maya's personality. I would like you to take this stone. He held out his hand toward me. And throw it the direction you think we should go. I did what he asked. Okay, I said, reaching for the stone. I took the stone and closed my hand around it. Be careful, whispered Anya. It felt alive. It was warm. I could feel it pulsating. Closed my eyes and thought about the place of power, trying to imagine that place. I felt light and smelled hot air. My hair stood on end. I threw the stone. Felt my hand rising entirely on its own. And then throwing the stone as far as I could, it was a good throw. The stone flew in a long arc over the bushes and disappeared without a trace of the dense undergrowth. Great, Daniel sighed. I was asking for that, wasn't I? What happened exactly? What just happened? I was confused. You were accepted, he answered with a faint smile, before he turned to head deeper into the forest. It started with the hair on the backs of my hand rising. The air around me seemed brighter, lighter. The leaves and the tree trunks turned yellow, and my skin started to prickle. I realized that I couldn't hear anything except for a low buzzing that was filling my ears. I was hot. My bones were vibrating, full of an energy I couldn't contain. I had to do something, snap out of it. Let's lash out on the nearest tree trunk. Not knowing what to do with all that energy, I kicked the nearest tree trunk. Look out! Anya screamed. There was a cloud of dust and rot. The buzzing grew louder. I felt a sting, and then another, and another. You're gonna lose health and run. How do you fight a hive? You don't. You just hope you can outrun it. So I ran and I hoped. And then there was an opening, and light. Real light. Not the yellow buzzing that I felt So I ran and I hoped, and then there was an opening, and a light, real light, not the yellow buzzing, and I felt everything become still. The clearing was a plateau between huge boulders. There were double-trunked trees between the rocks, and an angular, wooden construction that stuck out of the ground like a sore thumb. There was a bike leaning on it. But more importantly, there was a man, and he was moving in the most beautiful, harmonious way I'd ever seen. Poyo! It was hypnotizing. I couldn't stop looking at the way he moved, the way his muscles danced under his tanned skin. I admired the precision, the certainty, the way the man carried himself. I wanted to have that. I wanted to be like him, and I knew I could. The wasps that were flying around after me stopped in midair, forming a ball. The man slowly moved his hand forward, like he was gently pushing them away. The hive turned and left the clearing. The words came out of my mouth seemingly without my knowing. What did he do? What? How? What did you do? He smiled. It's a little complicated. He stretched his hand towards me. I'm Cornell, he said with a hard German accent. Shouldn't you be on the logging site? Daniel asked him after I introduced myself. I needed to center myself, he answered. The others are still there. Don't worry. They were cutting down trees in the forest? Wait, logging? Here? I couldn't believe my ears. He smiled bitterly. Yes, logging. Here. That's why I needed to calm down. This place is special, Daniel said. Some people call it a place of power, as I told you. They have good reason to, Cornell added. Look around you. So I looked. It was a clearing filled with light. I could see Cornell's traces, a beautiful pattern on the ground. But there was one thing that caught my attention more than anything else. The tower spoiled the serenity of the scene. Why the fuck is this here? I asked, pointing at the observation tower. I thought this was supposed to be a forest untouched by humans. People believe this was a place of worship thousands of years ago. Hence the fruit trees, the stone circle, and now the tower. And indeed, there's a lot of energy in this place. You felt it, didn't you? Yeah, we did. Yeah, I felt it, I said without enthusiasm. The Pushcha is wounded and in pain, and it calls out in rage to anyone who can hear it. Here this call is louder. You see, the logging, his eyes darkened, is slaughter. Anya gasped quietly. Every priceless thing could be destroyed by greed. Logging is illegal, of course, but illegal is sometimes just a way of saying a bit more expensive, but still profitable. Especially for huge corporations. The forest is hurt, the wound is getting bigger, as is its desperation. As tempting as going with the range option is, I kinda want to go with the middle option. Why doesn't anyone know about it? We're also sympathetic with Cornell. I clenched my fists. This should be in the newspapers. People should hear about this. Cornell regarded me for a moment with a faint smile. You have a connection with this forest, don't you? You should come to the logging site and meet everyone. Absolutely, Anya said eagerly. It sounded good. Could be the next step, and even if it wasn't, something had to be fucking done about this logging situation. Yeah, I'll come, I smiled. Great. We'll understand what you need to do. He jumped suddenly and looked at the wooden tower and the bike I'd noticed earlier. The Svala is getting restless, he said, and as Daniel pointed out, I should be on the logging site setting up the protest. What is a shrub? I asked, confused. He named his bike Swallow, Daniel explained. He loves it very much. Cornell grinned. Oh, I do. Nice meeting you, Maya. All I wanted to do was get out of there. The moment he disappeared, the buzzing came back. It wasn't as strong as before, but it was there. All I wanted to do was get out of there. Through the forest. We went on through the greenery. The buzzing in my ears slowly decreased. Let's see. Old stories, families divided, ancient graves, buried secrets. I'm thinking let's go to the wolf den. So let's go there. The first thing I noticed when we stopped was a pine tree. A pine tree I knew. I remembered it. Small, twisted, crooked, and immensely powerful. Every bend of every branch had a story to tell. It's majestic, I thought suddenly. Once before that, when I decided to come to Poland, I dreamed of that tree. I was sure of it. Just like I was sure that under its roots I'd find a burrow, and a few feet away, another one, like two dark eyes gazing at me as I approached. Daniel passed me and approached the tree. He pressed his cheek against the trunk. "Hello," he said quietly. "Hello again." "Hello again," I said quietly. Daniel looked at me with surprise, but didn't comment. "This is the den," announced Daniel. "It's abandoned, of course, but it's still worth seeing." Why was it abandoned? "What happened?" I asked. "Humans happened," Daniel sighed. He sat under the tree, leaning his back against it. It was a hot spring morning when they found this den. No one knows who the men were, even though it was only one human generation ago. There were 6 cubs here under the roots of this tree. He stopped stuttering and seemed to enjoy telling the story. I enjoyed listening. And I enjoyed listening to it. There's something calming in his voice and the way he talked. His slow gestures and wistful eyes made me feel as though I was with the cubs on that hot spring morning. "I don't think they wanted to hurt the wolves," he continued. "They probably thought they'd been abandoned. That's why they took the cubs with them. Humans have this instinct that makes you try to befriend everything, especially if it's dangerous." I didn't disagree. "When you put it that way," I answered, unsure. "I'm not saying it always works out, but the intention is good, and I believe the men who kidnapped the wolves wanted to do something kind," he continued. "Anyway, they took them. Out of the 6, 2 lived to see the cold summer that year. The wolf mother used to come to the farm they were at and howl. People went gray if they heard her. I knew that howl. And suddenly I heard that howl. I knew exactly how it sounded, and I felt despair and longing gnawing at my soul. I remembered how the cubs had reacted. They threw themselves at the door. Every time she came, we threw ourselves at the door, biting, trying to break free, to escape. "Maya, are you okay?" Anya asked, putting her hand on my shoulder. I felt for the cubs. I just feel for the cubs. I know a little bit about divided families myself. Oh. Yeah, that usually ended the conversation. Daniel sighed, looking at the tree and the burrow. The cubs that survived were sold to some people in... trying to pronounce this. Kenufka. But after a while, both of them ended up back in Białowieża with the scientists. They have a station in the national park. One of the wolves, Kazan, was a celebrity of sorts. If you saw any wolf photos from here, they were probably of Kazan. He was even on postcards. It was a great story. That's such a great story. It's so complicated. I was impressed. That's because it's the truth. There are no good guys and bad guys. There was a slight gust of wind, and the tree creaked. I remembered that sound from my dreams as well. A sound that made me feel safe. What happened to Kazan? And what happened later? I felt like I knew Daniel well enough to ask that. Is Kazan still alive? He lived for 8 years in the park. Daniel looked at me with his yellow-green eyes until they let another male wolf into his pen. I held my breath. They fought over the she-wolf and Kazan lost. Anya looked up from her phone. I've read about that. She sounded upset. They didn't notice he was wounded. It took him 3 days to die. Daniel shrugged. He lived a long life and died fighting. It was good. We fell silent. He looked at the burrows for a long time. This place is my friend, so I try to keep it important and respected. I think it's my mission, you know? I could relate to that. I think I understand. The forest had a way of sending people on missions. Daniel looked at the tree one last time. Goodbye, he said. I also said my goodbyes. Goodbye, I repeated, and we left. The forest was alive around us, vigilant but not alarmed by our presence. I kept thinking about the stolen cubs. Let's go to the ancient graves, the buried secrets. And I'm going to take another sip of water. Alright. The trail soon disappeared. Sometimes we walked along a barely visible path made by some animals. Sometimes we followed a stream or a gully. But for most of our trek, we walked through the dense undergrowth. I was getting impatient. The sun was barely noticeable through the dense canopy. I had no idea which direction we were going, and I was starting to doubt if Daniel did. It was a pleasant walk. There was always a path through the brambles, the ground was even, and the branches stayed out of our way. I almost felt as if the forest wanted us to find the way. Daniel was a mystery I decided to solve. I watched the efficient and deliberate way Daniel moved, and I tried to guess his background. Why had he become a guide? Tried to guess his background. Let's see if we can find out more about Daniel. Are you military? There's something dangerous in the way he moved. Yes, I used to fight. He said nothing more. Then I asked a few obvious questions. I don't want to give up that willpower just yet. Where are you from? I asked the obvious question. From around here, he made a vague gesture. Are you a professional guide? That's what I do for a living. He wasn't very talkative. Leave him be, whispered Anya. You know what? I'm going to spend that willpower. Then it hit me. Suddenly it all came together, and I realized what was so unusual about him. The way he moved was so natural, so effortless. No one who'd spent their childhood sitting all day at school or in front of a screen could move that way. Who are you, Daniel? I asked, bewildered. Were you raised by wolves or what? He looked me straight in the eyes, his irises a mesmerizing yellow-green. Yes, I was, he said with a poker face. Then he winked. Anya smiled uneasily. We continued in silence. We'd been walking for a while when I noticed that Daniel's steps had become slower. He was also looking around more often and had hunched slightly. I think we're going to enjoy the moment. I sat down on a fallen tree trunk and looked around and just enjoyed the afternoon. After a moment, Daniel shook his head. They're tricky to find sometimes. Be quiet for a moment, please. That was when I felt it. Ash in my mouth. The smell of smoke and wet soil. And a pull. I knew where to go. I think I know where to go, I said, surprised. He tilted his head. Okay, let's check it out. I pointed to the barely visible path to my left, under a dying tree. He followed me, and I followed my feet, knowing exactly where they should go. Under the crooked tree, past the dead tree trunk, and the sponge-like mushrooms, across the patch of wet, dark green moss, all the way to a place that didn't look much different than other parts of the forest, until you noticed the mounds. There was something about the flattened hills that drew my full attention. I could remember. A memory stirred in my mind. No, it wasn't a memory. It was a feeling anchored in my chest, akin to the taste of ash in my mouth and the smell of smoke. Longing, sadness, resignation. But there was more. A sense of sacredness. It filled me with a calm excitement, and when I closed my eyes, I saw a fire burning in the darkness. Voices. The dead were trapped beneath the stones, their bodies tangled in the roots. Some wore ancient Roman armor, some rags, some uniforms from the World Wars, some modern camo. Their eyes were clogged with wet clay, but their mouths moved, repeating the stories of their lives. Will you tell them our stories? They asked. Will you remember us? No, only one story was important. I had another mission. There was only one story worth telling, the story of the forest. When I opened my eyes, Daniel was watching me. You were somewhere else, he said. You said you had family here? I nodded. I heard my father's family came from here. I nodded. I don't know much about them, though. He sighed. I don't think you should be here, he said tersely. You're not ready. He knew something. Why? What do you know? I wasn't letting it go. About you? Not much, but I know Pushcha. The past is close here. His eyes were worried as he looked at me. And if the Pushcha calls to you, it's wise to listen. But it's not wise to get lost in the voices. Come. On the way back, I was lost in my thoughts. The voices in the vision knew what I had to do. It's almost as though it was expected of me. Was this what the forest wanted from me? Daniel said that the Pushcha had called me. Was the vision showing me what the forest needed? I accepted that thought. I smiled. A bigger picture was finally starting to come to light. The Pushcha wanted me to inspire others. The walk back was uneventful. I felt a little tired. The shadows of the enormous trees cooled the sweat on my skin. The taste of ash lingered in my mouth. We made our way back. As we walked through town, Anya nudged me and pointed at a tall, broad-shouldered, freckled guy standing at the bus stop with a lost expression on his face. I remembered his face from the pictures on social media. It was the friend who'd stood me up earlier. I greeted him. Bartek? I asked, getting his attention. Maya, what are you doing here? He blurted with surprise when he saw me. I was sure you missed the bus. He started walking and talking. His accent was broad and East European. Anya liked him. Anya took an immediate liking to him, I could tell. I always could smell romance in the air. We walked along the only street in the village, nearing the center, if you could call it that. Every house had a garden, and the air was dense with the fragrance of flowers. I took a deep breath. So, did you find anything linking me to the forest? I asked. Bartek shook his head. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Sorry. He was avoiding my eyes. A trickle of sweat ran down his temple. He was clearly lying to me, but why? Come on, man, I said. You wrote to me that you'd found something. But he just clammed up. You know what? I think you should drop it. I stopped. And unleashed all of my charm. I turned to Bartek, and I looked him right in the eyes. I put his hand on his chest. I really had no plan after that part, so I panicked and felt a sudden urge to do something unnecessary and over the top. I looked him deep in the eyes. I leaned towards him and looked him deep in the eyes. I hoped he'd see how important it was to me, but he just blanched and jerked back. I didn't give up. Tell me what you found, I asked, not giving up. Well, he brushed his forehead with the back of his hand. I did ask. I started with the old people here. I told them that my friend from the States was looking for her roots and wanted to know about the place her family came from. You know the drill. At first, people were very, receptive. I waited for the other shoe to drop, and then I mentioned your name. He shook his head. I started to lose my temper. Bartek, I waited a long time for this conversation. I started to lose my temper. Just tell me already. One of the old men here told me to go to hell. The other spat on the ground, and his wife crossed herself. For a moment, he looked younger and smaller. And then my own grandmother told me to stop asking. She said something else as well. I tensed up. What? I asked. She told me to pray for you. Suddenly, the sweet, golden afternoon wasn't so sweet and golden anymore. We're gonna go with the high rage option. I was furious. I felt anger boiling somewhere deep in my heart. How dare they? I didn't need their prayers. We walked in silence, but my mind was in overdrive. People didn't want to talk, and that could only mean one thing. I was on the right track. My pulse quickened, and I tensed up like a hound that smelled blood. I was on the right track. I needed to gather my thoughts. It was a long day. A lot had happened, and I was really tired. It was good to meet you in person, I said, but I need to be going. All this traveling and walking through the forest, it was exhausting, I smiled. Sure, where are you staying? Turned out we were going the same way. Of course. We went back to the bed and breakfast. The B&B was quaint. I left Anya and Bartek outside. They were lost in the conversation and didn't even notice I was gone. When I got out of the shower, Anya was back, smiling and a little flustered. What a day, she smiled. So, what do you think? I made a quick mental inventory of everything that had happened that day. I was moved by the story of the wolves. The wolf cubs that were kidnapped and died in captivity, I sighed. The story stayed with me, you know? She put a hand on my arm. Divided families, huh? It's okay, Maya. I was freaked out by the visions at the barrows. Something strange happened when I was visiting the old barrows. I said and instantly regretted it. Never mind, I was probably just dehydrated. Yeah, it was probably it, but you looked weird. She laughed, nervously. A lot of things today were weird if you think about it. Like Daniel. Daniel was a strange guy. There's something strange about the forest guy. I tried to put my finger on it. He acted like he learned how to be a human from a book. A book he didn't understand. I know, right? Maybe it's the isolation. It seems he spends most of his time in the forest. The place of power sure made an impression. I felt this strange energy in the place of power before we met Cornell. It still freaks me out. Cornell seemed cool, though, Anya answered. They seem to really understand what you're going through. They were cutting down the forest. I can't believe they're logging here. I shook my head. Isn't the forest on a UNESCO list or something? Yeah, I know. I want to check out this protest people were talking about. Maybe we could go there tomorrow. Didn't feel like talking anymore. You know what? I'm seriously tired. Let's call it a day, shall we? Soon we were both in our beds ready to sleep. I was tired, sure, but also excited. And excitement isn't the best for sleep. I lay there for a while, thinking about everything that had happened and what might happen next. The wind from the open window lapped over my skin as I watched the silver rectangle painted on the wall by the moonlight. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the tangled branches, the stone Daniel asked me to throw, the leaves. I came here with one question, and now I had so many. Felt like I was getting closer to my answers. Felt that the answers I was looking for were within my reach. I should go and see the logging protest, find Cornell, and make him talk. After a long while, all these thoughts became blurry. They slowly started to turn into pictures, sounds, and colors. I drifted off. Two black holes underneath a crooked tree stare into the night, quiet and vigilant. I felt excitement rising deep within my stomach, and then throughout my whole body. I am a weapon. I am a razor-sharp knife. I am a sword. I am a gun waiting to be fired. I'm asleep for now, but soon someone will use me, and I can't wait. I feel a pull. I feel a pull and I surrender to it. I am pointed towards a clearing. There are piles of fresh corpses of people who died too young, skinned and mutilated. Their loved ones stand around them, grieving, unable to do anything, waiting. And suddenly they are just trees and tree trunks. I howl. I look at the moon and I howl. The trees are dead, and I'm the only one left to sing their story. There's a stench in the air like meat rotting in acid, but somehow worse. I see the monstrous army. Their mandibles are whirling chainsaws. Their long metal arms are wrapped with black pipes that look like glistening intestines. Their smell is vile. They wait, unmoving. I pay my respects to the dead. I go to the dead trees and kneel next to them. Words come to me in a language that I don't remember, but that I know. Words about revenge and death and sacrifice. And then my voice tells me to look at the sky. There, between the stars, two shapes circle each other. An old, sad wolf with gray hair and a white weasel. They keep their eyes on one another as they continue their dance, suspicious but not hostile. We need to fight the enemy, the awful rotting stench. I know that much. But how can we do that when we don't trust each other? They stop. They look at me and the clearing. Oh, thank you for the stretch, Lore. Hello. Hello, hello. Hello, Lore. Thank you for the stretch. Oh, I needed that. Let's look at them. I look at them. I know. Let's sing. Let's sing a song. I sing to them in words I don't recognize, but that I understand. They come down to me, and their voice is the voice of the Pusha. We've been calling you, and you finally came. I wake up. Logging? Oh boy. All right, definitely a good chance to get some water. Alright. Let's start the chapter. The next morning was full of sunshine and birdsong. I could smell the heat of the afternoon building, those long, honey-like hours in late June when the earth isn't tired of its own warmth yet. But it was crisp and pleasant now. I got up, sat on my bed for a moment, letting my feet dangle from it. I wasn't sure how I felt. The weight of the previous day had coiled up somewhere in my chest, and it felt like a tiny merry-go-round, gaining speed. And there was the dream. And then I remembered the dream, the clearing, the animals in the night sky, waiting for me. I took a shower, ate something without really paying attention, and went out. Anya's joined us. We were halfway through the forest when I realized we were walking towards the logging site. Protests, activists, answers? I was running all the options over and over in my head. I didn't really care where I was going. When I looked up, the sun was shining, the village was behind me, and I was at the logging site. Anya looked around. So, what's the plan? I needed to find someone. There was someone I had to find and press for answers. Cornell. I need to talk to Cornell, the guy from the Place of Power. He seemed to know a lot about the forest's hidden secrets. I looked around. On my right was the ancient forest. On my left was the freshly torn clearing. Ahead of me, ruining the view, were huge logging machines and a group of people arguing in their shadow. The clearing needed someone to nudge them in the right direction. Let's look at everyone. There were people there too. The loggers were sitting idly on the tree trunks, sharing cigarettes. The police that stood between them and a colorful group of protesters were visibly uneasy and twitchy. I saw some reporters who were clearly bored because no one was doing anything interesting. The harvesters loomed over the clearing, reeking. I saw a familiar face among the protesters. Cornell was arguing with a woman with gray dreadlocks. The protesters were clearly conflicted. They clearly needed some advice. They were foolish, losing sight of the big picture, and someone should tell them that. Might as well be me. One of the police officers, young and nervous, said something I didn't fully understand. I let Anya handle it. Anya flashed her best smile and flooded him with Norwegian. He smiled back. "Oh," he said, "you're one of them," and then let us go. Then I noticed that someone joined us. I noticed that someone used the commotion to sneak with us past the police, a girl with disheveled, bleached-out hair. "Don't worry," she patted the officer on the arm. It was an awful pickup line anyway. He recoiled. You shouldn't touch me, ma'am." I smiled. Smiled at her and wanted to say something, but I was interrupted. "Pat," Cornell called her from the gathering. "Could you come here? I need you to show Olga that chart." She sighed, reached into her backpack, and took out a tablet. "And they're at it again," she murmured under her breath, and winked at me. "Coming." We went towards the activists. As I walked towards Cornell, I heard more and more of the argument. "Olga, you can't," Cornell was saying. Pat stood next to him with her tablet. She looked a bit amused. "Do not fucking tell me what I can or can't do, Cornell," the woman with dreadlocks interrupted. "I can, because they are destroying our mother. I can fight with all the means at my disposal, even if that means burning those harvesters to the ground." I noticed Daniel standing near her. He took a few steps back, went towards one of the harvesters, turned his back on all of us, and pissed on the machine. Olga smirked. Oh, Daniel, you know how to bring the point home. He looked at her confused. Cornell raised his eyebrows. Burn the harvesters? Cornell asked calmly. In this drought? Olga, are you out of your mind? You know what I mean. We fight them any way we can, because this is a fucking war. She spat. He sighed. You've never seen real war, and it shows. Nobody is shooting at us, and believe me, we want it to stay that way. We need a peaceful protest. I approached Cornell. Hi, we need to talk, I said, approaching Cornell. Hello, Maya. Could you wait? I'm right in the middle of something here. In the middle of something? Normally I would wait for them to finish, but it was important. I looked at them. I looked at them both, Olga with her fury and passion, Cornell with his cool, professional demeanor, and shared, without any reservations, what I felt about the situation. There was a fine line to tread. There's a fine line to tread, I said in the silence. You don't want the protesters to be painted as terrorists, and you don't want them to be treated as irrelevant and ignored. I only inflamed the situation. Whoops. Whoopsie. The argument attracted more and more people. Someone old shook their head and moved forward. They had deep wrinkles, a narrow mouth, and a unisex grace of a tired, heroin-preserved rock man. I totally dug their style. Actually, I'm leaning towards they looked out of place. They looked out of place with their shoulder-length, disheveled hair, a clean shave, and eyes highlighted with eyeliner. Bright blue nails, heavy army boots, a red skirt, and a tank top completed the look. And pins. Lots of pins. All kinds of LGBTQA plus flags, anarchist and pacifist symbols, and I think some German band stripes. I observed them curiously. Olga, darling, you know I love you, but Cornell really knows what he's doing. Please, trust me on that one. They talked to Olga, but kept glancing at me, as if to check how I reacted. Fuck off, Kim. You didn't even trust me enough to come here on your own when I asked you to. There was a woman at Olga's side. Next to Olga, there stood a woman, and she was the most beautiful person I'd ever seen. I couldn't keep my eyes off her. She had a perfect hourglass figure, long braids, and the most stunning cheekbones. Her eyes, slightly slanted, were a weird shade of blue, deep, almost purple. She had a peculiar accent. Kim, you want to teach me about violence? She looked them straight in the eye. About fighting oppression? Just because your boss went to what? One mission in Afghanistan? Her Polish was peculiar, kind of mellow. Cornell winced. Lisa, leave Kim alone. He didn't know what to say, and it seemed that the whole discussion would be derailed. I didn't let that happen. Hey guys, the forest, I said. The logging, the protest. Olga unclenched her fists. Cornell looked back at her and chuckled softly. You almost punched me. The conversation was over. At least for the time being. Cornell, together with his cronies, walked towards the reporters, while Olga went back to the group of people, standing in the shadow of an old oak tree. I looked at the forest. I looked at the puszcza. The clearing full of felled trees was like a gaping, bleeding wound in the chest of a friend. I had to do something. I looked at my friend. We have to stop this logging. Yes, just like Olga said, Anya nodded, excited. What they are doing is unforgivable and we have to fight. I looked at one group, I looked at the other. Ooh. Harvesters were dripping with black oil, and the forest stood tall, serene, and full of golden light. It looked like it could protect itself. And then I looked at the felled trees, dead, limp, helpless. Well, we came here to get answers from Cornell, so I think that's the way we're gonna go. Let's be persistent. Cornell owed me some explanations. Hey, wait for me, I shouted and ran after him. Hello, Maya, he said. I see you haven't come alone. He reached out his hand. I shook it. His handshake was firm and strong. His eyes were an uncanny shade of gray. Damn, he looked tough. Damn, you look like a tough guy, I blurted out, impressed. He was, in that bad boy hipster military way. I know, he said without skipping a beat. Cornell looked me in the eyes. I know why you came. Here we go again, pronunciations. Białowieza. 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 When the forest is under attack, it reaches out and picks someone. This time, it picked you. He seemed to believe it. I looked at him, skeptical, but he seemed to believe it. We have the same goal, he looked back at me. Will you help me? I had no time to answer. But before I could answer, I heard a commotion and turned around. The reporters were coming our way, but the cameras were switched off and pointed at the ground. I saw an opportunity to shine. Do you need an interview? I offered. A hot take? A Polish American coming back to the land of her ancestors to protect European heritage? So, asked Cornell. There was a hint of impatience in his voice. The reporter shook his head and grimaced. Sorry everyone, we can't do anything. We're not allowed to cover what's going on here. What did they mean? What? I exploded. What do you mean you're not allowed? Who said so? Everybody was looking at me. It felt weird. The reporter shrugged. The people who can send an officer your way who will kindly ask you to hand over your memory card or else. Go figure, girl. There was a moment of tense silence. I would like to announce that this is the third time tonight I've tried to scroll up Riley's stream to reread earlier text. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, we can kind of do that with this. If I'm going too fast, I can slow down. Oh, no? Okay. And then it all came together. Suddenly, I understood the dream. That was the moment I was destined to intervene. The protest was too quiet. They needed inspiration. I just had to make the reporters understand. We could still use the reporters. I actually lean towards the top. Let's be inspiring. I took a step back and looked at the bigger picture. I saw the cops. I watched the police as they started to push into the protesters. I could see their faces covered in sweat under their helmets. Got any brilliant ideas? Cornell asked me. I grabbed a megaphone. Grabbed the megaphone from the hands of a confused young man and jumped on a nearby tree stump. Audio feedback screeched. and heads turned my way. I had one chance to take control of the situation. We should focus on what was important. We're all here for a reason, I began. The police have their orders. We want to save the forest, and the press need a good story. But we have to look at the big picture. Let's spend some willpower. I considered my next words carefully. We all understand how this works, I continued, considering my next words carefully. Escalating will only bring more problems. We will be here for a long time. Let's take a step back. They looked at me. I could see the same look emerging on the faces of the officers and protesters. Their eyes narrowed, their jaws tightened. A journalist started to laugh. I felt someone grabbing my arm. Someone grabbed me by the arm. I wanted to yank my hand away, but the grip was strong. You'd better go now, said Cornell. We'll take it from here. That didn't go well. When I was on the road to the village and nobody could see me, I stopped and screamed. A startled flock of birds took off from the trees nearby and filled the air with feathers and movement. In the whole commotion, I lost Anya from my sight. I was alone. Or so I thought. Well, you had it coming, a voice behind me said, and I jumped. A woman was looking at me. I said nothing. Angry, I straightened up and said nothing, my throat still sore. We walked slowly towards the village. We talked. I learned that she was an independent German reporter who'd come here about a month ago. Her name was Erica. So, why are you protesting logging? She asked after a few minutes of small talk. For personal reasons. Came here for a personal reason, and I've dropped right into in the middle of some eco-guerrilla campaign. I shrugged, and for many reasons my interests are aligned with the protesters. I looked at her, and why are you asking? She looked at me with renewed interest. Do you know why they are cutting down the trees? She asked back. Because you do know that logging is done by a government company, the state forests? But why? But why are they doing this? I wasn't sure if I understood. Shouldn't the state forests take care that the forest was healthy? Erica reached for her notebook. It all started with spruce bark beetles. Erica looked into her notes and started explaining the whole situation. That year, the beetles' infestation was of catastrophic proportion, and the foresters decided that the only way to stop it and save the rest of the forest was to cut down as many infected trees as fast as possible. Was cutting down trees necessary? Is cutting down trees the only way to stop the infestation? I asked, confused. The foresters state that this is the only way. Some biologists argue that they are cutting the wrong trees and doing it too late to change anything. Couldn't they just remove the dead trees? Maybe if they removed the dead trees, the infestation wouldn't spread. I tried to find a solution. They might do that, but dead trees are what make the forest unique. There are 20 times more species living on a dead spruce tree than on an alive one. But was the logging legal? But is the logging legal? I wanted to know. Opinions differ, but such massive logging in a UNESCO-listed area might be illegal, Erica answered. Did they have to intervene at all? Couldn't they just leave the pushcha alone and let nature take its course? I asked. That's one of the options, Erica admitted, but there's a drought, and no one is sure if the forest would survive on its own. It was infuriating. Why couldn't she just answer my question? Let's try to understand her point of view. I see that you're trying to show me the whole picture, and I appreciate it, I sighed. I just hoped there would be an easy answer. I'm just doing my job, Erica shrugged. I describe all the aspects of the situation to you, but it's up to you to decide what you want to do. How convenient. She was putting herself in such a convenient position. Unfortunately, I couldn't just pretend that it wasn't my business. At least I was sure that they were cutting down trees, and the Pushcha needed my help. And who controlled the narrative? Who controls the narrative about the logging? I asked Erica. All the public media explain why it is necessary and legal, she answered. And that's why I want to help the protesters, I explained. They need to be heard. She looked skeptical. You're not the only one feeling helpless, she sighed. But anger makes you see things in black and white, and the truth is more nuanced than that. I said nothing. I always felt so angry when there was too much to process at once. And everything that happened at the logging site, the heat, the stench of the harvesters, the tension between Olga and Cornell that you could cut with a knife. It almost sent me into some kind of frenzy. What's the matter? She asked. I told her about my anger. I'm so fucking angry at what I saw. I took a deep breath. Then I remembered what Cornell had said. All that mystical stuff. And they said that the forest needs my help. I shook my head. It's a lot to take in, and there is that foul smell back there. She looked at me with a weird expression. What smell? She asked. The smell was not the point. Of all the things I told you, you asked about the smell, I huffed. I'm trying to understand what's going on here. She looked at me with a strange expression on her face, as though she wanted to say something and then thought better of it. She looked hurt. I thought she'd been hurt by my outburst. You'll learn in your own time if you stay here long enough, she said, clearly wanting to drop the topic. What did she mean? What do you mean? I asked, getting irritated. I just told you. You'll learn in time. Or not at all. Which would frankly be better. Anyway, gotta run. As I watched her leave, I thought that whatever connected to the forest had surely manifested itself that day. I guess I'd made some progress. Jumped right back. Jumped right into the middle of a very tense situation, and at the very least, upset the status quo. I just hope I hadn't made things worse. I walked on in silence. Anya came back soon after me. I lost sight of you, they said apologetically. I'm glad you made it back in one piece. So, how was your day? I learned a lot. Did you know that the government supported the logging even when it was illegal? I shared my dismay. Anya just nodded solemnly. Yeah, I've read about it. Why didn't you tell me? Well, you have a lot going on, she shrugged. Gave a public speech. I gave a public speech, I mumbled. I'm not sure how it went, but a lot of people listened. Anya looked at me with awe. You don't waste time, do you? I had to do something, I sighed. Met a lot of new people. Met some very interesting people, I said, still excited. Yeah, they looked like a colorful bunch, Anya grinned. Maybe you could introduce me later. They sure are passionate. They argue between themselves more than they argue with the loggers, I added. That was all I wanted to share. I shrugged. Just another day in Białowieża. Białowieża? I'm gonna struggle pronouncing that until I hear it said. I can't even, oh well. We sat for a while in silence. You know, there's more to see here than Białowieza, Anya said from over her travel guide. All these pronunciations, gosh. Pogozeltsa, Booty, Teremeski, Sherlonka. There's something interesting in every village. An open-air museum, some kind of folk university, the bison. Maybe you'd like to see something more than the logging. I did not care. Frankly, sightseeing is not why I came here, I said. Right now, the most important thing we should care about is the logging. And how's the search for your roots going? Anya couldn't stay silent for long. Can we pet the bison? I want to pet the bison. I want to pet the bison too. We tried to pet a cat earlier and it swiped at us. I shared what I learned. They say that when the forest is in need, it reaches out to people. And for some reason, this time it reached out to me. Wow. Anya looked impressed. Honestly, I'm not sure what to think, but if you need something, just let me know. I was tired. I just sat there, looking through the window. The day had been full on, and I was exhausted. I didn't notice when I fell asleep. I mean, fair. Cats can tell you're a vampire. No, we're a werewolf. A werewolf. Let me be a werewolf. Let me a woo. Let me howl. Oh boy howdy, a change of scenery, for sure. It's quiet now, yet I know deep inside that something isn't right. I keep walking. I'm walking through the forest to the logging site. It's getting dark. The light seeps away as though there are millions of tiny punch holes in the sky through which it can escape, and then the darkness starts to pour in. Oh, even worse. You're a wolf, and then you thought the cat would like you? Oh, that's a good point. I welcome the darkness. It's thick, oily, snake-like, and wraps around my ankles, caresses my wrists, then takes my hands and leads me to the site. It's full of maimed bodies. They are all trees, fallen trees, still alive, still struggling for air. And there's the stench. I can smell them. The stench is dark, rancid, putrid. There are monsters at the edge of the forest. They have long, skeletal arms. They are wrapped in glistening black intestines, and each arm has a wide, gaping mandible full of whirring blades. They snap at me blindly. My friends stand up by my side. Their eyes shine in the dark and they are ready. They are angry. I can feel their rage merge with mine. I don't have to say anything. I lead the charge. With a howl, I lead the charge. We clash with the shapes and start to destroy. We bite off heads and tear off arms. We are the stuff of legend. Then I wake up. I gasped and bolted upright. I was alone. The sun was setting, and in the deep red light, the room looked like it was bathed in blood. My pillow was on the ground, gutted, and the duvet was in shreds. The air was full of tiny feathers dancing in the draft from the window. What the fuck was going on? We're full of rage, we're full of willpower, and we're full of health. Let's fucking go. Chapter 3. Alright, excuse me for a moment. I thought I had some tissues here. Never mind. I guess I'll suffer. Alright, chapter 3. I couldn't get back to sleep. Since I had arrived in this accursed village, things had been getting stranger and stranger with every passing hour, and now I had ripped a pillow in half in my sleep. Nothing about it was normal. I needed to talk it over with someone I trusted. Oh, are you getting sick too? A little bit. I think it's mostly just allergies. Actually, give me just a second. I'm actually going to be right back. I'm going to mute really quick. I'll be right back. Yeah, I hope it's just allergies too. Yeah, it's so hard to tell because of the symptoms. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'm sick. I think it's just allergies. I'm gonna go ahead and okay. Give me just one more second. Alright, my sinuses are clear. My conscience is clean. Alright, who do we want to talk to? Let's see. Well, we're on good terms with Cornell. Daniel's sympathetic. Anya's loyal. I mean, I'm guessing she's probably freaked out about all the blood around and us ripping the pillow in half. I'm thinking I'm not sure. Because Daniel and Cornell, like, understand what's going on. Anya just seems like just a bystander. But she's also our friend. It's hard to choose. You know, poor Anya. Yeah, poor Anya. Poor Anya. Alright, we're gonna go with Anya. Why not? I come here with Anya, and despite all the strange things I'd done, she still stuck with me. I messaged her and she messaged me back. I'm on a walk, come join me. The sun had just set, and the moon wasn't up yet. I started walking. The forest loomed on the horizon. The activists' camp was somewhere there. We met near the shop in Białowieża. It was a characteristic enough point, and easy to get to from anywhere in town. What is it? Anya asked. She looked worried. Something strange was happening to me. I know it sounds crazy, but I think something strange is happening to me. It's driving me mad. There is something strange happening, she nodded. But I have no idea what it is. I know even less than you. She frowned. Maybe we should go to your new friends? The activists? She smiled a little. They are weird. They must know something. It was an option. I mean, they sure know things, but I'm not sure if I trust them. You know what they say, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. She smiled and started walking. Let's go, I'm sure they're not sleeping. We went to the activists' camp. The camp had a different vibe than the logging site protest. There were more people there. We looked around, trying to take it all in. They are coming and coming, Anya laughed, excited. The people in the camp seemed quite cheerful. Someone was singing. I heard 3 or 4 girls singing together in a unique Eastern European style called the White Voice. It was the most melodic, throaty growling I'd ever heard. I listened for a moment. I stopped and got lost in the music for a long while. People were milling about, setting up camp, cooking, preparing posters. Everyone was busy. I looked around. I definitely needed to talk to someone about what was going on, about what I felt. I need to see Cornell. Hello, I said as I approached. Cornell smiled at me. Hello, he said. What brings you here? I was confused. I'm confused, I answered. Is it really true? I mean, all the stories I've heard connecting me and the forest? Cornell looked at me with those uncanny gray eyes. I could feel his attention lock on me. Yes, it's true, he said. And that's why we're here. To stop the government destroying the forest. To show that we don't agree and that we hope to make a difference. And you have your role to play. Will it work? I asked. I don't know. All I know is that it worked before. It worked for Gandhi, it worked for segregation, and apartheid in the end. It worked with communism, so let's see if it works with capitalism as well. Violence is not an option here. He smiled. And I think you know quite well that anger doesn't really get shit done. I knew that. I smiled back. Somehow, being around him made me feel more relaxed. I know. You can count on me, I answered. The forest needed my help, and I couldn't be just an observer anymore. So we may have a little citizen protest going on tonight, Cornell said, but I'll need your support if we want to convince the others. Alright. They all wanted to do something that night, but after a whole day's discussion, they were still divided on what to do. 3 for one option, 3 for the other. I saw no reason to back up Olga. So I guess we're going with Cornell's plan. Peaceful protest. Voted for the peaceful protest, and soon we were on our way to the National Park headquarters and education center. We had some banners to install. Let's bring Anya along. We've dragged her through everything so far. Might as well keep her around. This is so exciting, Anya whispered. I've never done anything so illegal. Oh my god. Anya. Soon we were there. As we were on our way, I realized we followed the path only because of my vote. I made a difference. The National Park headquarters were located in somewhere called Palace Park. The name was historical. The name, like everything in Poland, was historical. Centuries ago, some king had his hunting lodge there, but now it is a mishmash of old and new buildings scattered around the park. Some were rough and bulky, made of stone and brick, while others were an extravaganza of wooden porches, lace-like shutters, and meticulously sculpted pillars. There was no one around, and the area was well lit. Anya's a little too excited, yeah. She's getting a little too into it. I needed to be careful. This wasn't your everyday act of vandalism. This was something bigger. More important, yes, but also more dangerous. Getting arrested in Poland didn't seem like a great way to start my visit. On the contrary. In fact, it could be the end to it. Suddenly I remembered the church located just next to the Palace Park gate. I could feel its dark silhouette looming in the darkness, waiting. We were ready. They spent the whole day painting the sign on a length of material sewn together from what looked like old sheets that were various shades of grayish white. The dark green letters declared, "Wood is the enemy of the forest." "Where do we hang it?" asked Daniel, who'd come equipped with climbing gear. We could cover the church. I shared my recommendations. Let's go recommendations. I think we should attach it to the drain pipes there and there. I pointed at 2 corners of the building, and Daniel grunted in agreement. Doesn't matter, Olga said, because hanging the banner is a waste of time. I looked at her, curious what kind of advice she could offer us. I asked her for advice. So what could we do better the next time? I asked her for advice. We'd vote for a plan that has a chance to actually help the forest. Olga rolled her eyes. It's a great banner, and I'm sure it'll look good on the pictures published by a number of independent political blogs. She looked at Cornell, but it's stuck so deep into the over-educated ecological dispute that people won't get it and the loggers won't care. Cornell just shook his head and gestured Daniel to continue. I waited patiently. Soon the sign was up, screaming our message to all of Białowieża. Cornell looked at me. Maya, what do you think? I didn't get that slogan. I didn't even get the slogan, I admitted. Cornell looked surprised. Nobody told you? It's from a famous book about the Puszcza. Humans let the forest grow so they could take wood from it. But that isn't the purpose of the forest. When done on a huge scale, it's actually devastating. Finally, we pulled the banner up. It's an important message, Anya looked up with fire in her eyes. The world must know. I looked at the sign, flying high over the park. I was proud of our work. When we finished, Cornell gathered us together. I was proud of what we'd accomplished, and I contributed to that. We helped the forest, even if it was only a little. Cornell reached for his bicycle. Let's go for a trip, he said, to remind ourselves what we're trying to protect. The woods were full of stars. We cycled in silence, enjoying the company of the forest as it enjoyed ours. After some time, the place of power opened up before us. The boulders looked relaxed. A soft breeze rustled in the trees, welcoming us. I was tense. I was starting to have second thoughts. Something was telling me this was not a good night to be out in the forest. I felt the energy filling me, just like before, but now it was structured, harmonious. I wondered if anyone else felt it as well. Do you guys feel that? I looked at my companions, but before anyone could answer, a loud sound tore through the silence. It was a tongue-tied, God. It was a gunshot. A gunshot. Anya gasped, looking around, wide-eyed and terrified. The others tensed up, but they didn't look concerned, just confused. "Who's there?" Cornell shouted. There was a rustle, and I saw a bunch of men in camo, each of them with a rifle, coming towards us between the trees. I observed them. I watched their angry steps and listened to the murmured curses. Suddenly I noticed Bartek was with them. He winced when he saw me. Their leader weighed us up for a moment and finally focused on Cornell. "This area is closed for the night," the huntsman said in Polish. There was contempt in his voice. There's a hunt going on, and y'all are trespassing. We have police officers here, so I would go home if I were you, unless you want to get arrested. He was a man used to being listened to. He tried to sound self-assured, but it takes one to know one, and I knew he was nervous. I turned to the forest for advice. This man, I realized, was no one. He wasn't important here. What was important was the forest, and what it needed, and it cared about me and didn't want me to get hurt. There would be other knights and other people to fight, but right when I felt that it wanted me to leave, I ran, my arms shielding my face, my skin slick with sweat, and the darkness thick around me. I was holding Anya's hand as we pushed blindly through the night. Something was chasing us. We left the shouts and gunshots long behind us, but we couldn't stop. Something was chasing us. Two silhouettes, one lean, the other bulky. I saw them in the corner of my eye as they leaped forward. At first I thought they were people, but as they leaped they got longer, smaller. I couldn't see clearly. It was dark. Sweat was blinding me, and they were hiding behind the trees. I heard howling and growling, and then I saw there were wolves chasing us. I heard them snarling and snapping, one after the other. I tried to run faster. Hoping that Anya could run fast enough, I sped up. Giving it everything I had, I ran like my life depended on it, and I did. Let's throw ourselves into the bushes. I heard panting and a snarl, and I threw myself toward nearby bushes. Something slammed into me, and I felt a sharp pain in my arm. I got up and turned around. I looked at the wolves. They looked at me. I felt strangely connected to them. We're the same, I realized with shock. You and I. The wolves dispersed, and then something happened. Something I couldn't see clearly, and two people stepped out of the bushes. They looked at each other with murder in their eyes. Cornell? Wait, she has the right to know. Cornell grabbed Olga's arm. One of us is going to bite you, she said matter-of-factly. And then you will die, Cornell added. One way or another. The forest needs it. I closed my eyes. There was a series of wet cracks, like skin breaking, torn from within by muscles that suddenly grew, by bones rapidly getting longer, by fur and teeth and claws. When I dared to look, I saw two 8-foot-tall monsters standing in front of me on the narrow path in the forest. Fuck. Fuck, I managed to whisper. Then one of the monsters clawed at the other, lunged and closed its jaws on the other's throat. Blood splattered, drenching me before I could start screaming it was all over. I saw life leave the strange gray eyes. The surviving monster lifted its black and white muzzle. It reeked of death, and its teeth were dripping blood, and jumped at me. And there was only pain. Boy howdy. The pain was unbearable. Nothing in my life had prepared me for this. I knew I was dying. Blinded by the blood in my eyes, my shoulder and chest burning around the wound, I knew I was dying. Lost in the woods, away from my family, such as it was, I could only watch as my life pumped out of my body in a crimson river. I collapsed. I stumbled, I fell. The forest caught my fall with a bed of moss and twigs. I stopped thrashing, and a cold numbness engulfed me. No, I tried to get up. I punched the earth, trying to get some feeling in my hands. I gritted my teeth and tried to get up. I collapsed again. I felt so cold. Suddenly there was light. I looked up. The full moon. It looked different. The moon was a goddess and she noticed me. Get up, she said. I got up. I get up and feel good. I know that I shouldn't, but I don't remember why. I don't care. My mind is clear. My mind is clearer than it's ever been before. I see the world in sharp contrasts of black and white, movement and stillness. I smell prey. I hear language and the hooting of owls, the whirling of the wind, and the snarling of wolves. I am one with this forest. I stretch. My muscles are sore and cramped, so I stretch like I've never stretched before. My arms are longer, my legs are stronger, my heart is pumping, and I feel like I've spent my whole life packed into a box, and I've finally been set free. I breathe. I take a breath and I feel my ribs and muscles move. The forest smells of blood and fear and excitement. I'm happy. I laugh happily and others' laughter joins me. We laugh and sing to the moon, and something stings me. I look around. There's a small, malformed creature pointing a stick at me. The stick blazes with fire, and there's another sting. The creature is no threat to me, but its presence is annoying. Its smell almost sends me reeling, and I don't like being pricked. I stick my hand in it. I reach out and stick my fingers into the creature's belly. When I pull my hand back, there are strings attached to it. The creature pulls the strings and dances like a marionette, and for a moment it's funny. Then I lose interest. My ears prick, and I hear more creatures running blindly through the bushes. I feel better. My leg no longer stings, and I feel better than ever before. Is this a dream? Maybe it's a dream? I think as I move silently through the undergrowth. The creatures are running away. Their backs turn to me. A growl escapes from between my teeth, and one of them turns my way. It challenges me. I just look at it. I look at it and the creature curls up, shielding its face with its paws. It keeps talking, but the noises make no sense. I move on. It annoys me, but I ignore it and move on. Piercing light burns my eyes. I hear more creatures coming my way. They want to hurt me. I strike them one by one. I hide in the shadows and they are too slow, too dumb, too clueless to notice me. I strike them down one by one. Some fight back. Some manage to defend themselves briefly, but most of them don't see me coming. A new smell. The wind brings a new smell. The air tastes of fur and musk and blood. Shapes move among the trees, but they are no creatures. They are people, like me. Suddenly I'm surrounded by them. I think I know them. They seem familiar. It's like I met them in the past, but they were hidden. They closed in on me. What do they want? I wait. I relax and wait for them, unflinching. They approach me and sniff the air. Their smells are overwhelmingly familiar. Once people had sounds attached to them, and now I realize the sounds were not their true names. Run with us, they say. And we run. And we hunt together and there's joy. There are no words to describe the thrill of being a part of a pack, and closing in on your prey and tearing it apart. Then I get lost, chasing something only because it's escaping. I am alone in the heart of the forest. I look up and see no moon, only clouds and tangled branches. Something changes. Something changed, and I realized how tired I was. I stumbled. Darkness. The night sky was full of stars. I opened my eyes. Confused, I opened my eyes. The forest around me was thick and dark. The tree trunks, wrapped tightly and darkly heavy, were covered in ripples of lichen where the vines hadn't taken hold. The thorny, leafless bushes at their base were overrun with nettles. The fungi radiated with a ghoulish, sickly green light. Dark, sponge-like mushrooms clung to the fallen trees. I tried to breathe. Took a deep breath and winced. There was a foul smell in the air. Suddenly I realized it wasn't the forest that smelled so foul. It was me. I looked down and saw my hands covered in a dark substance. I was naked. A sticky, glistening film of liquid was clinging to my skin. I could feel it on my face, in my hair. Blood. Someone had drawn strange symbols on my skin and the drying blood. Was it me? I remembered my dream and slowly lifted my eyes. I saw a mutilated body. Its severed head was right in front of me. I'm gonna touch it. I'm gonna touch the head. Gonna poke it. I winced and I touched it. Overcoming my disgust, I gently touched its wet hair and watched as the head toppled over. The face was contorted, the eyes bulging, the mouth open as though the head was still struggling for air. Oh, such painful sounds. Yeah. Recognize that face. Oh. Oh no. Cornell's dead. Oh god, I recognize that face. It was Cornell, his gray piercing eyes now dull and dead. The head watched me with reproach. I screamed. No! I let out a long, blood-curdling scream. The night swallowed it. The bushes rustled, and a moment later I saw Olga. She came out from between the trees, wiping something red off her hands. She looked at me, at the head, at my face. "Get used to it," she said. "You're a werewolf." I looked at her, I blinked. Everything faded to black. Well, shit. Cornell's dead. I liked him. Bison! There's a bison. Right over there. Maybe we'll get to pet the bison. Alright, time for a water break. I guess this could be a good place to stop, but I also want to keep going, so we're going to keep going. Such a good bison, yeah. And now we are a werewolf. The morning smelled of safety, fur, earth, and the forest. I opened my eyes and saw the people cuddling up to me, their muzzles resting on their paws as they slept. Gentle snoring filled the warm space under the low-hanging branches of an old spruce tree. I went outside. Stepping over the sleeping forms, I made my way outside. Alone, hiding in the tall grass, I sniffed around. The sky was bright, and the forest around me was dark and full of interesting smells. High in the trees, Birds yelled about status, sex, and violence. Memories start. I was in danger. I was in danger. The thought was abrupt and unwanted, but like a siren. Something had happened last night. I pressed myself flat to the ground and pricked my ears. They wouldn't find me unprepared. A creature stirred in the bushes nearby. A tall, dark silhouette. A strangely familiar smell. I tensed up. And watched the human as they looked around. "Maya, there you are," they said when they noticed me. It was time to get out of there. I spasmed. Suddenly, a feeling, like a cramp or a spasm, surged through me and everything changed. I was Hamid, the human form. My body started resetting itself to the familiar shape, and it hurt. Bones broke and fused again. Muscles and sinews moved under my skin. I cried and thrashed. Then, panting and sweaty, I was Hamid again. I hit the ground with my bare ass. Colors exploded. The morning breeze suddenly became cold, and I shivered. I looked up. Confused, I looked at the person approaching me. "Get dressed." Olga threw me a bundle of clothes. "And stay human. They won't survive the change. Not until Lisa deems that you're worthy to learn the right, at least." We looked at each other. "As for what you saw yesterday," she added quietly, "it had to be done." I took the bundle. I snatched the bundle and started pulling the clothes on. Sturdy but comfortable boots, cargo pants, a green hoodie. They fit perfectly. I thought about the previous night. When I was raging through the forest, about how differently I experienced the world through the wolf's senses, and about the discomfort and confusion of changing shape. So, I was a werewolf. There was no denying it. I was no longer human. I wanted the full story. "Tell me everything," I demanded. "It seems I've missed a lot about life." "Don't worry, there are plenty of stories to tell." We just stood there for a moment in silence. I was wondering how one usually learned that they were a werewolf. I asked Olga about her story. "So how did you, What a brilliant conversationalist I was. A werewolf? Oh, well, I was born here, I always knew I was different." "Me too." I felt the same way. I shared my experience. I meant that I liked girls. She shook her head and continued. "So I went to study in Warsaw, and for a moment everything was fine. I met a really nice girl. Felt happy for her." I could only imagine how great it must have felt like. I smiled. Olga was silent for a moment, lost in her memories. Then she continued. "We went partying one night, and 3 dudes attacked us. When I came round, they were lying on the ground with their guts ripped out. And my girlfriend was nowhere to be seen." "And what happened next?" "And then?" I was curious. What happened next? "Frankly, it's none of your business." Olga bristled. "I've already told you more than I wanted." "But how come nobody knew about werewolves?" "Doesn't make sense," it suddenly struck me. "How come nobody knows werewolves exist?" "We protect the veil," was the answer. "It's easy to convince humans that the supernatural doesn't exist. They already want to believe that, and the delirium helps." "Delirium?" "You mean delirium as in the medical condition?" I asked, remembering something that I'd read about acute confusional states. "You'll have to ask Pat for that, but the gist of it is that humans are incapable of remembering that they saw a Krynos." She laughed. "They panic, turn away, and instantly forget. Every time." Then I realized something important. At some point, the rest of the party had awoken and joined us. The clearing was full of wolves. The wolves were closing in on me. I knew my next decision would have serious consequences. Let's go with acceptance. We've been trying to find out what our roots were. Why are we having dreams about the forest? I think it would be a good option to accept it. Let's fucking go. The headless body was heavy. They said that, as my first kill, it was my burden. It was my duty to take it to the barrows. I got my shit together. Lifted the corpse, and threw it over my shoulder. We are Garu, and when we rage, people die. Olga stood by my side. He had it coming. He accompanied me, carrying the severed head in a bag. The others stayed behind, covering the tracks. But she knew it wasn't my kill. But Cornell isn't my kill. I looked at Olga. You know that. Do I now? Olga looked at me, and suddenly I felt cold. I didn't push it. Hey, Elmo.
Hello.
Hello.
Baby.
You have a baby?
Baby.
There's a baby.
There's a baby.
Hi, baby. Hi, baby kitty. I'd say, huh? Kitty cat? Alright, I've been given a cat. I'd say, And... What are you doing, Zaya? Where are you going? You just vibing? Just hanging out? Okay. She's hanging out with us. The body was too heavy. Kept dragging the body, but the burden was too much to bear. I was tired and hurt, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I looked at the body, and all I wanted, really wanted, was to say something, but I choked on my words. I curled up into a ball with my arms around my head. I couldn't. I can't, I said, and then it was the only thing I could say, louder and louder until it became a shriek. I can't, I can't, I can't, I can't. Olga sighed and kneeled beside me. You're a werewolf, Gaia's soldier. There's nothing you can't do. Get up. We have a world to save, and you have an obligation to this forest. She was right. I took a deep breath. She was right. I was here for a reason. I had things to do. Suddenly, I knew what to do. Suddenly, I understood. I realized I was in a state of flux. I could change shape the way I shifted my position when I ran. And there was so much beauty in it, in all the forms and possibilities, always fluctuating. If I only knew how to do this, and if I got just a little stronger, I'd easily handle the body. I changed. Oh, we get to choose our form. Let's go Glabro. That was Glabro, the near-human form. The pain was stronger than I ever imagined. I felt my muscles spasm as they rearranged themselves. My jaw cracked and my mouth filled with blood. I clenched my fists and claws drove into my palms. I screamed. When I rose, panting and sweaty, I was more than human. I was Glabro. Wolfish, strong, scary. It hurt. The change hurt more than I expected. The world shifted. Not much, but enough. I felt my teeth get sharper and muscles stronger. I picked up the body. It was a lot lighter. We went on. At some point I realized we weren't alone. There were two shapes in the bushes on either side of the road. Animals, one big and gray, the other small, nimble, and white. Ah, My companion smiled. I see you've noticed our patrons. Yeah, we know each other, I said, remembering my dream. We sort of met the other night. Two animals stopped in front of me in the middle of the path. We came here to teach the cub, said the wolf. She smelled of ash and tears. Was I hallucinating? Couldn't believe what I saw. It made no sense. I felt as if my brain was short-circuiting, trying to interpret signals not meant for human senses. Was there really a wolf? My eyes told me there was a wolf staring at me, but when I looked at it, I felt ash on my tongue. I heard a mourning howl so deep it reverberated in my bones, and I smelled fire. And when it talked, it was like the rustling of leaves formed words in my mind. They wouldn't leave me alone. Hallucinations or not, they just wouldn't leave me alone. The weasel circled me, and before I knew it, I could feel small claws on my leg, then on my back, and then on my arm. It smelled of musk and electricity, and then it bit my ear. I ignored it. Do they always do that? I asked, ignoring the spirit. Speak to me when I'm biting you. The weasel's electronic voice echoed in my head. Enough, the wolf growled. Or at least that was what my brain decided to hear. I felt the weasel draw its breath. In the beginning there was Gaia, aka Mother Earth. She gave birth to a mighty breed of warriors, the weasel began. It sounded electronical, like a teenager reading a Wikipedia page over a voice chat. They were called Garu, that's the werewolves and werewolfish, and their sole purpose was to protect Gaia. They failed, wailed the wolf. I looked at the wolf. There was danger everywhere, shrugged the wolf, when I looked to her for advice. When time began, Gaia released 3 primal forces upon the earth. The Weaver, the Wild, and the Worm. The weasel continued. The Wild was the untamed force of life and creation. The cold, ruthless Weaver gave structure to the world, and the Worm destroyed what needed to be destroyed, creating balance. Are we creatures of the worm? So were werewolves creatures of the worm? I asked, destroying imbalance. They were Gaia's children, the wolf snarled, born to herd and contain humans. So what went wrong? I could see that something went wrong, I smiled wryly. The Weaver grew too ambitious and trapped the worm within its lifeless web, the weasel answered. Confined and denied, the worm slowly went insane. The wolf wailed. Now Gaia is dying, choked by the Weaver and eaten alive by the worm, wailed the wolf. You cannot reason with the worm, she snarled. You can only fight it. Then it turned and led the way. The burrows looked just as I remembered them, but somehow calmer, warm and welcoming. Olga kneeled near one of the mounds, put her hand on it, and whispered a few words. I saw the ground open slowly, like a mouth in the earth. I sighed. Let's do this. We put the body in the hole. We took the severed head and the body I'd wrapped up in sheets and put them in the hole. It closed slowly. I could swear I heard the trees nearby sigh in anticipation. The wolf howled, and I could feel the hair on my hands rise. Welcome to your new life, the talking white weasel grinned. Oh, excuse me. We have something to show you. I ran with them. You're a cub, so you have special privileges, said the weasel. Pushcha will grant you a vision. You must see to understand, said the wolf. Think carefully before you choose what to see. The future, your destiny. The present, the forest. The past, your family. Oh boy. I'm leaning towards the future. Let's heckin' go. It was hard to find the place of power, although I knew where it was. I felt the Pushcha playing with me, twisting paths, blocking my way with bushes and dead trees, and then suddenly opening a new path that was straight and full of sunshine. I got tired of it. I decided to make my own way. Since the change, I had become acutely aware of how my body worked, and I remembered what humans were good at: running. Stubborn, relentless, long-distance running. Not as fast as a deer, not as nimble as a wolf, but steady and without rest. So I ran. And then I was there. There it was, the place of power. Stones in a circle, old apple trees, a buzzing in the air. I opened my mind. There is a swirl. It starts deep within me and then expands. Everything is in motion and there is no center anymore. I see a bird. There's a bird flying higher and higher. There's a wolf, her howl like a keen. She keens after me when I fall. She mourns my blood that spills on the ground. Yet another of her cubs lost. In balance with this life, this death, it whispers to me. Little trees grow from where my eyes have been. Life goes on. A snail lives in my open mouth. Life goes on. Squirrels hide their acorns between my ribs. Seasons pass. The acorns grow and turn into oak trees. Years go by. And then there is no more of me and no more forest. There is only us. Us working together. Us who work together, hand in hand, cleaning the fallen trees, protecting the standing ones, healing the damage, building the roads, breathing the air, hiding under the trees from the burning sun. But there are other... Let's go with talking. Talking. There's talking. Talking, reasoning, living. A wolf is keening in the forest. The ash-gray wolf stands in front of me. You understand what you have to do. I had to choose my path. I understand what I have to do. There are many paths in front of us, and I have to choose the right one. The future can still change, I realize. It depends on our choices. The fight is the only righteous path, child, the wolf shook her head. It's what the Pushcha wants. She looked me in the eyes. No compromise. Be my teeth, be my claws, be my rage. Kill them all, save the forest. I looked at her. And perhaps for the first time, I saw her for who she was. Her pelt was marred with fire. Her eyes were smoking embers. Ash was falling from her heaving flanks. She looked old, ancient, sad and alone. She was Kazan's mother. She was Kazan's mother, mourning her stolen cubs, howling in the woods, waiting for a response that never came. But she was more than that. She was also the Pushcha. She was also the spirit of the forest, which the Pushcha herself, wounded, hurt, violated, and mourning, all her children that humans had killed. At least, that was what I thought when I looked at her. The wolf mother looked back at me, and something in her eyes made me realize that she was trying to tell me what the Pushcha wanted from me. Join me, she pleaded. Only you can understand her. Understand me. Only you. I joined her. I went to her and she accepted me, and I accepted myself. I finally understood who I was. The paths before us merged and only one remained. The wind smelled of ash and tears. The future awaited. A lone howl pierced the silence like a single ray of moonlight in the darkness. Then there was only another one, and then another, and then another. A choir of voices, triumphant and joyful. When I opened my eyes, I was in a clearing. Around me, there were wolves. Huge, monstrous wolves howling at the moon. I joined them. The pain was overwhelming. My spine cracked and twisted. My knees and ankles broke and I fell on the ground. My jaw shattered and rearranged itself. My whole skin was on fire, rippling and sprouting fur. I howled in agony. I'm gonna take a sip of water. Oh man. When I rose, panting and spitting blood, I was Hispo, with strong paws, mighty jaws, and a mane of fur. More than a wolf, scary and monstrous. Instinctively I changed and joined the choir. My voice was unsteady at first, but soon I found my own note, a unique addition to the chorus. Good, you're almost ready now, said Olga, looking at me impatiently. Welcome to the Sept. The what? I have no idea what you're talking about, I snapped, angry and confused. We live in packs, Olga explained, and when packs unite to fight a common enemy, they form a Sept. So there are 2 packs there. I realized that there must be at least 2 packs there. I looked at Cornell's friends. A young and black wolf changed into Pat, and Kim, her moments later. We're all that's left of the winter weasel pack, said Kim. A white shadow settled on Pat's shoulder. I smelled musk and electricity. I looked at Daniel. Hi, Maya, said one of the wolves, changing into Daniel. He looked more real as a wolf, confident and relaxed. Olga and Lisa also stood up, human-looking again, their clothes rumpled. We are the pack of the mourning wolf mother, said Olga. They smelled of ash and tears, and for a moment I saw a wolf spirit among them. We are all Gaia's warriors, said Olga, and that we have no choice, but we can choose friends who will stand by our side. What were we fighting for? What are we fighting for? I asked. We fight to save our Mother Earth, Daniel wailed. She is sick, dying, and we are the last beacon of hope against the darkness and corruption that is the worm, Kim said. The last word reeked of decay and burning oil. Did I have to join a pack? Do I have to choose a pack? I asked, just to make sure. No Garu can survive on their own, Olga stated the obvious. You may not like it, but if you want to live, you need us and our support, and we need you. I have so many questions, I shook my head. What about the moon? Why did I hear the moon whispering to me? I asked. Luna gave us rage. That is why she's important, Olga said, and that is why you'll never be able to touch silver again. You are from all over Europe, I noticed. Is this, like, a standard for a Sept? I looked at Olga. I didn't even know if that was a stupid question or a smart one. I looked at Olga. Normally the tribes keep to themselves, Olga grimaced, but we are in a desperate situation and had to form rather unorthodox alliances. There are at least a dozen tribes, Daniel interrupted. And I hope, Maya, that you will choose yours wisely. What about the spirits? I asked. How does that work? The world casts a shadow, and we call it the Umbra, said Lisa. And in the shadow, every living creature, every emotion and idea, every important object that exists has a spirit. And that's all you need to know at the moment. So if I got this all right, I've been conscripted into an ancient war against the worm, I said slowly, trying to put it all together, and the moon gave me rage as a weapon, but I must avoid silver. And there's a whole secret world of spirits, I continued, and I have to join a pack and choose a tribe. Exactly, Lisa nodded. As for the tribe, there's only one person who can mentor you now that Cornell's dead. Olga is from the Black Furies, an ancient tribe of women warriors. Strong, save Gaia, fuck patriarchy vibes. What about my family's tribe? Hey, what about my family's tribe? I asked. Lisa winced, Daniel sighed. Olga shook her head. What was the matter? What's the matter? I asked again. Your ancestors were the Geta Fenris, and no one here wants to have anything to do with that tribe. Kim bared their fangs. They stand against everything we believe in. My grandfather didn't even know you. I was outraged. You can't judge me by his tribe's actions. Your family was hunting humans for generations, Daniel pointed out. Geta Fenris are the most radical Garu supremacists that ever marred the face of Earth. Kim scoffed. Like legit fascist werewolves. Some of them literally worked for Hitler. Thank you for telling me, I said. I had the right to learn about where I came from. For a moment we were all silent. Need to know more about the tribes. Wanted to learn more about the tribes and find an option that would really resonate with who I was. So let's talk with everybody. Let's talk with Kim. Kim told me a lot about the Bonars, urban werewolves fighting for the disadvantaged and the marginalized, children of the rat. They really have a rat as a patron. Do you really have a rat as the tribe patron? I asked. Sure we do, Kim answered. It's a very good patron, resilient. You want to be like a rat, always managing, always afloat. They kept talking. And this shit here, they gestured around, this shit comes from prejudice and from exclusion and from greed. Take greed and prejudice away, and 90% of the world's problems are solved. They sighed heavily. They'll tell it to the other Garu and they look down at you, because you are a Bonar, and they think they are superior. Prejudice. Prejudice everywhere. Let's talk to Daniel. He's cool. I asked Daniel if I could join his tribe, but he didn't understand the question. I'm a Red Talon, he said, as if it explained everything. What are the Red Talons? I asked Daniel. It is the T tribe of the Garu. Oh, it is the... I forgot he had a stutter. It is the tribe of the Garu who are born as wolves, Daniel explained. We usually don't mix with others, and we kill humans. But since I am the only one here, I decided it was better to join the rest. Why? Why? I kept asking. He looked at me as if I was stupid. What are you, stupid? I asked a second later. There is always strength in numbers. I protect my folk better when there are more werewolves around. Your folk? Wolves. Stared to get who he was. Daniel sniffed the air. His nostrils moved in a very non-human way. I was looking, enthralled. Are you a wolf? I asked. He made a face. We all are. No, we're not, I corrected him. I was born a human. For a second his eyes were full of disgust. Yes, I was born a wolf. And then when it turned out I was not only a wolf, I was disgusted. You know, going around on two legs, soft and helpless. Who really wants that? Anyhow, hated them, the humans, and want to have anything to do with them. So Lisa comes one day, and she talks to me, and brings me to Olga, and I think, well, they are not humans. He sniffed the air again. Besides, they work for Pushka, so I have to help them. Ah, Daniel likes this just a little bit less. The mourning wolf mother. Daniel fell silent for a moment. She is Kazan's mother. She became a spirit after his death. It's impossible, I said. She must be older, much, much older. Daniel looked up and then shrugged. If you say so, he answered. I still like her. She knows what it means to be a wolf. Thanks. It was all I wanted from him. Let's talk to Pat. Pat was a glasswalker, and her tribe was finding its niche in cutting-edge technological cityscapes. Among the strands of the weaver's net. It sounded intriguing. We talked for a while. So you're basically a city dweller, I observed. Oh, excuse me. All glasswalkers are. It's our natural habitat. I feel quite out of place in the forest. Why? I couldn't understand. But Pushcha is our home. Maybe your home, she said. I suddenly realized we had less in common than I thought. I'm more of a city girl, she added. We use the weaver to fight the worm. And the forest is not the weaver's domain. And I happen to be quite fond of humanity. They have great potential. I had to think it over. Finally, I stopped asking. I had to think over what I learned. Let's talk to Lisa. I asked Lisa about her tribe, but she inherited her Sibarak legacy from her Buryat grandfather. She said I didn't know the proper legends, customs, and culture to join. Was Sibarak a Russian word? So, I asked, not sure how to approach the topic. Sibarak. I mean, you're from Siberia. I hesitated and Lisa smirked. The tribe name reminds me of something. Yes. Sibirak. She pronounced it differently so it sounded like a Polish word. I must have heard it before. I'm sure that I heard it before, I said, in a different context. In Russian, it means someone from Siberia, but in Polish, it has its own very specific meaning, Lisa explained. It's a word for political prisoners exiled to Siberia, and there were tens of thousands of them. So why are you using a name, even if it has such a loaded meaning? I couldn't understand. Lisa sighed. My tribe name describes both of my legacies. My granny was a political exile, and my grandpa was a Siberian indigenous. I use it because it speaks the truth. How did you become a werewolf? I asked Lisa. My grandpa saw that I had the soul of a wolf and started teaching me about the spirit world. She looked at me with violet eyes. When the time was right, she guided me through the change. I looked at Lisa and felt a sudden pang of jealousy. I wish my grandpa had been there for me, I growled. I guess he didn't care. Oh, he must have told you many things when you were a baby, and you remembered, Lisa said. How else would you know the high tongue? That was a good question. Thanks. That's all I needed to know at the moment. I didn't want to talk anymore. But I was too exhausted to bug them with personal questions. One thing is bugging me. Why are there so many of you here? Suddenly, everyone in Białowieża is a werewolf or what? You know nothing, cub. Olga laughed bitterly. A mere century ago, there were dozens of packs in these forests. But none of the old guard survived the 90s. Lisa shook her head. We had to start from scratch. Not counting you, there are only 5 of us, and only 3 local, Pat pointed out. Barely enough for 1 pack. Anyway, before you're admitted to a tribe, you need to prove yourself. prove myself. I was shocked. Hadn't I proven myself enough already? You went through your first change, Pat said. She was leaning on a tree nearby. You know everything you need to know at the moment. But you have to go through the rite of passage. Daniel rubbed against my flank, excited. A vision quest, Kim winked at me. And since we don't have time for tests, we need you to solve a real problem. Olga stepped in. Namely, we want you to find a way of ending this logging problem. Lisa wrapped it up. So, how would you do it? They all looked at me in anticipation. I took my time, enjoying the moment. My body was buzzing with energy, ready to shift shape at the slightest sign of danger. My mind was clear. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do. We had to destroy the logger's image. We need to destroy the logger's image, I decided. Paint them as bad people. I still think we should just burn those fuckers to the ground. Grumbled Olga. I know what Cornell would say, Pat sighed. That we should find and neutralize local forces behind the logging. We can do a live stream from here. Documentary. Show people why the forest is so precious. Show them what's happening here, I continued. I know how to make things go viral. When we're finished, the loggers will be the vilest of the vile in the public's opinion. Daniel beamed. Spoken like a true Galliard. You were born under a gibbous moon, weren't you, Maya? It's my auspice, too. I looked at him surprised. How did he know? Mom always told me that when she gave birth to me, the gibbous moon was shining through the window, giving her comfort. Alright then, we're a Galliard. Boy, heckin' howdy. You're right, I nodded. How did you know? Garou born under the gibbous moon are storytellers and lore keepers, said Kim. Just like you and Daniel and me. It is the path of glory and wisdom, added Lisa. Oh boy, heckin' howdy. Place in werewolf society will be determined by your renown. You can earn glory through defeating mighty enemies and succeeding at dangerous quests. You can earn honor by following your moral imperative and upholding the laws of the Garou. You can earn wisdom by acting efficiently and thinking well before you act. Your renown will change as you play, contributing to Maya's legend among the Garou. No pressure at all. Oh, excuse me. Olga must have sensed my confusion. Come on, we have a lot to discuss. She patted my shoulder. We need to find your phone and wallet. I nodded and followed her. I had to tie up loose ends in my old life. Sitting on a bus, the sun streaming through the windows is making it hard to see. The narrow road cuts through a dense old forest. Mind wanders. I remember doing something important, walking among the trees, looking for something, losing something I loved, gaining something unwanted. But then I'm fully awake and the memories scattered away. We're almost there, says Anya. I did some searching. She looks at me from over her phone. This place is amazing, the last primordial forest in Europe. I laugh. Anya, you're such an adorable dork. Not able to finish, I started to cough. I spit blood. My throat is sore, my lungs hurt. Anya, I turn to her. She looks at me worried. You should drink something here. She pulls a bottle from her backpack and gives it to me. I take a sip and feel something dry and acrid in my mouth. And then starts to move. I spit it out and see thousands of small spiders leaving my mouth. Threads of silk cover me, the seat, and everything around us. I thrash at the window, but a few seconds later I am bound in a cobweb cocoon. I hear a hiss. Then slowly, a long, dark, bloody shape comes out of Anya's eye socket, pushing the eye out. A black snake that reeks of rotten meat, acid, and oil. Don't fight, Maya. You're already mine, it says, just like a grandpa. Alright, it's been 3 hours. I think it's a good time to wrap up the stream. We'll finish this tomorrow. We're like 3/4 of the way done, but I think it's a good place to stop. So let's go. Yeah, let's do that. So, thank you everybody for hanging out, for vibing. We're gonna go and find somebody to stream. Alright, to raid. My brain's already getting words mixed up. I think it's a good place to stop. So thanks everybody for hanging out, for watching. Let's see. What's everybody else doing? You know what? Let's go raid Eve the Orphan, my friend. She is having her World of Darkness game tonight. She's actually playing Werewolf the Apocalypse, but chat is playing a Were Raven. And I think that's actually a fitting way to end the stream. We're gonna go raid Eve. Yeah, thank you, Lore. I'll be sure to rest well. It's a lot of reading, a lot of talking. So we're gonna go and raid her, and I'll catch you all later. We'll finish this on Wednesday, and then I'll figure out another game to play. I haven't really decided what yet, but I'll figure it out. Alright, and until next time, I'll catch you all later.